All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Kenya's tech scene.
That's right.
There have been some pretty interesting developments recently.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on.
And this was an article published just yesterday, October 24th, 2024. So this is really hot off the press.
Yeah, very recent developments.
So the headline here is, new phone regulations could see your phone switched off.
Wow, that's pretty attention-grabbing.
It is, right? And it definitely caught our eye.
Definitely makes you want to learn more.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
So basically what's happening is the Kenyan Communications Authority, also known as the CA,
Right.
is stepping up its efforts to regulate the mobile market.
Yeah, it seems like they're really taking this seriously.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah,
And their main goal here is to crack down on tax evasion.
makes sense. They want to make sure everyone is playing by the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to ensure a level playing field for everyone involved.
Right. It's about fairness and transparency in the market.
Okay, so let's get down to the specifics here.
Sure.
The article says that starting November 1st, 2024, any new phone sold in Kenya
Okay.
will have to meet specific tax compliance requirements.
So no more bringing in a new phone from a trip abroad without declaring it.
It sounds like that's what they're aiming for.
Interesting. So how are they planning to enforce this?
Well, that's where it gets a little bit more technical.
Okay, I'm all
It
ear.
all comes down to the IMEI number.
Right, the unique identifier for every mobile device.
Exactly. So the CA is setting up a system to track these IMEI numbers.
I see. So they'll be able to see which phones have paid the proper taxes.
Exactly. And whether those phones were imported or assembled locally.
Okay, that makes sense. So what happens if someone tries to bring in a phone that hasn't gone through this process?
Well, the article mentions something called gray listing.
Gray listing.
Hmm.
What's that all about?
And even blacklisting, which sounds a bit more serious.
Yeah, blacklisting definitely has a negative connotation.
So if you buy a phone after November 1st and it hasn't met those tax requirements,
Right.
it gets put on this gray list.
Okay, so it's like a warning.
Yeah, like a probationary period, I guess.
So what happens during that period?
Well, you have a chance to sort things out, pay the taxes, get everything squared away.
Right, otherwise.
Otherwise, if you don't take care of it, your phone to be blacklisted.
And what does that mean exactly?
Blacklisted basically means no connection to any Kenyan network.
Oh, wow. So no calls, no texts, no data.
Exactly. You're basically holding a very expensive paperweight.
So they're really not messing around.
It seems like they're serious about enforcing this.
Yeah, this is a pretty big deal for anyone planning to buy a new phone in Kenya after November 1st.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the immediate impact.
Wow. Yeah.
But the article also dives into some potential long-term effects of these new regulations.
Okay, like what?
One that really stood out to me was the possibility of phone prices actually going up.
Oh, that's interesting. So how could that happen?
Well, if local assemblers and importers have to deal with all these new regulations
Mm.
and compliance procedures, those costs are probably going to be passed down to the consumer.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's basic economics.
Right. But on the flip side, this could also encourage more phone manufacturers to set up shop in Kenya.
How so?
Well, they assemble the phones locally, they can avoid those import taxes.
I see. So it could actually boost local manufacturing.
Exactly.
That's pretty interesting. So
Yeah.
potentially higher prices in the short term,
Right.
but maybe a more vibrant and self-sufficient mobile market in the long run.
Yeah, it's like a trade-off.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, definitely. But how does all of this fit into Kenya's broader vision for its digital future?
That's a great question. And that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
So stay tuned because we're just getting started.
Yeah, there's a lot more to unpack here.
So we'll see you in part 2.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're back and we're talking about these new phone regulations in Kenya
Right?
and how they could potentially shake things up in the mobile market.
Yeah. It's definitely a bold move by the CA.
So in part 1, we talked about the immediate impact, like gray listing and blacklisting.
Right, those are some pretty serious consequences for non-compliance.
But now I want to zoom out a little bit
Okay.
and think about the bigger picture.
Sounds good.
Like, how does all of this tie in to Kenya's overall vision for its digital future?
Right, because Kenya has been making some big strides in the tech world.
Exactly. They've really been positioning themselves as a leader in Africa.
Yeah, they've got that Silicon Savannah thing going on.
Exactly.
Okay.
So where do these new phone regulations fit into that puzzle?
Well, if you think about it, Kenya has this ambitious plan called Vision 2030.
Right. I've heard of that.
It's basically a roadmap for transforming Kenya into a newly industrializing middle-income country.
Okay.
And a key part of that vision is embracing technology and innovation.
So these phone regulations could actually be seen as a step towards achieving that goal.
Exactly. By encouraging local phone assembly, they're not just creating jobs. They're potentially fostering the development of a whole ecosystem of tech skills, manufacturing capabilities, and even research and development.
Wow. So it's like planting a seed that could grow into something much bigger.
Precisely. And let's not forget about the potential impact on government revenue.
Oh, right. Because increased tax compliance in the mobile phone market could mean a lot more money for the government.
Exactly. More resources for education, infrastructure, healthcare. The possibilities are pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's like a positive feedback loop.
Definitely. Now, there's another interesting detail in the article that I wanted to mention.
Go ahead.
Even agencies importing phones for research and testing purposes will have to disclose IMEI numbers and comply with these new regulations.
Really? So it's not just about the consumer market.
Nope. It seems like they're trying to create a comprehensive and transparent system.
No loopholes.
Exactly. And to be clear for our listeners, this only applies to new phones sold after November 1st.
Right. So if you already have a phone, you're in the clear.
That's right. Your device won't be affected.
But if you're thinking about getting a new phone after that date,
You definitely need to be aware of these regulations.
do your research make sure you're buying from a reputable retailer.
Yeah, you don't want to end up with a blacklisted phone.
Now, this whole situation could actually lead to some pretty interesting shifts in consumer behavior.
Like what?
Well, people might start to prioritize locally assembled phones.
Oh, because they know they're supporting the local economy and ensuring compliance.
Exactly. It could become a matter of national pride.
Yeah.
Buy Kenyan, support Kenyan innovation.
That's a really interesting thought.
But the question is, can local assembly really compete with the big international brands?
Right, in terms of quality and features.
Because if they can't, then this whole plan might not work out as well as they hope.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
So there's a lot riding on this, not just for the economy, but for the future of the Kenyan tech scene as a whole.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the potential impact on digital inclusion.
Right, because if these regulations lead to more affordable, locally made phones,
More Kenyans will be able to connect to the digital world.
which could have huge implications for education, healthcare, financial services, all sorts of things.
And that's what makes this whole story so compelling. It's not just about phones or regulations.
Right.
It's about a nation striving for progress and using technology as a tool to achieve its goals.
It's about empowerment, innovation, and maybe even a little bit of digital destiny.
I like that.
But of course, with any build move, there are bound to be some challenges.
Of course.
What are some of the potential downsides or roadblocks that we need to consider?
Well, one concern is that these regulations could create barriers to entry for smaller businesses or limit consumer choice.
Right, because we don't want to stifle innovation or limit access to a diverse range of devices.
Definitely. Finding that balance is going to be crucial.
Yeah, that's a really important point. We don't want to stifle innovation or limit those choices for consumers.
No, definitely not. That balance is going to be key.
So it's not just like set it and forget it.
Right. It's going to take constant monitoring adjustments as we go see how things play out.
And, speaking of how things play out,
Yeah,
it'll be really interesting to see how the Kenyan tech community responds to all this.
right. Do they rise to the occasion? To
Mm.
embrace the challenge? Will there be some pushback, some resistance? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. It's a gamble for sure.
Yeah, definitely. High stakes, though.
High stakes, high reward, potentially.
True.
Now, I'm curious, are there any other countries that have tried something similar to this?
That's a great question. It makes me think we should probably look beyond Kenya's borders, see what's happening in other parts of the world.
Yeah, because maybe there are some lessons to be learned from other countries' experiences.
Exactly. Whether it's successes or failures, there are definitely precedents for this kind of government intervention in the tech sector.
So it's not a guaranteed win.
Right. Some countries have had positive results, others not so much.
So it's a mixed bag.
It really is. And that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating. We're watching a live experiment unfold right in front of us.
Real-time tech policy in action.
Exactly. And the outcome could have major implications, not just for Kenya, but for the whole region, maybe even globally.
That's like a ripple effect starting in Kenya and spreading outwards.
Exactly. Other African nations might be watching closely, considering whether to adopt similar measures.
And it could even spark broader conversations about the role of government in shaping the digital landscape.
It's a big deal.
It really is. So, for our listeners, we want to leave you with this question. What do you think the long-term impact of these new phone regulations will be on Kenya?
Will they spark a tech boom? Will we see Kenya become a major player in the global digital economy?
Or will there be unintended consequences that stifle innovation and limit consumer choice?
Tough questions. No easy answers. But that's the beauty of it. This is a complex issue with so many potential outcomes.
And this is just the beginning of the story.
Yeah, we're going to keep following this one closely.
So stay tuned. Keep your eyes on Kenya. And we'll be back with more deep dives into the world of tech and how it's shaping our lives.
Until next time, keep exploring.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.